You clearly win the award for the greatest player to never let your teammates down.
One of the main reasons I retired from the NBA was...
You get the ball last second, you're about to take those shots. Is there anything going through your mind?
I never had a panic attack, and I think I had a panic attack. You got one time to yell at me. Second time, then we got a problem. I didn't get kicked off the team. You want to know why I got kicked off the team?
I do want to know. We all want to know.
When my daughter passed, I went through a period where I was not myself. People always say, how do you want people to describe you? That he was human.
When you were in high school, they called you the great Robert Horry. When you were in college, you were the great Robert Horry. When you're in the NBA, the great Robert Horry. But this is the great Robert Horry. Let's start another AlderTalk. If you don't know who I'm with right now, of course, the amazing, great Robert Horry, 7-time NBA champion.
Yeah.
Alabama Crimson Tide alum.
Did that hurt you to say
that? That hurt me to say that as an LSU Tiger, but I appreciate you being here. We've been friends for a while now,
Yeah.
and our wives are longtime friends, and so thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's fun. First I want to say thanks for having me. Second, I want to say, man, great office. And it's been a pleasure to know you as a person, man.
Same here, same here. And we were talking at dinner, and
that I paid for, yeah.
that you paid for, and you were talking about some things, and I was like, damn, people need to hear this because we all know about the Robert Horry, the NBA, all of that, but what it takes to be a success in basketball over a long period of time, same thing, success in life, right?
Correct.
And I'd love to share what you were talking about, but let me get a couple things out of the way because, if you don't know, Big Shot Bob is, responsible for some of the greatest last second winning shots in NBA history. And probably everybody on the second floor could tell you exactly what those shots are. But let's start with kind of how's your life been since you retired from the NBA?
One of the main reasons I retired from the NBA was my kids. One of the things people forget about basketball is like the same schedule as being a school teacher almost. You start in October, into May, and you're gone a lot. And at the time, my daughter, who passed away at 17, I wanted to spend more time with her because, we kept going through those situations where her health was just declining. And so I was like, man, do I really want to play? I made a lot of money. I made a lot of money, but I could have made more money. But my whole focus was, spend time with her, watch your kids play sports. So that was one of the main reasons I retired. But then when I retired, I realized there were a lot of doors that could open up for me. And one of the best doors that ever opened up for me was becoming an ambassador for the NBA. And I got to travel the world on their dime. I've been to places I never thought I would be, Istanbul, all over China, Russia. So it was a bunch of places that opened up for me. And that was a pleasure in itself to be able to do these things because as a player, you didn't want to do much because I was very fortunate to win 7 championships, like you said. And at the end of the season, you're beat up. And I don't want to do nothing but sit on my couch and watch TV and let the body heal. So retirement has been great. And the crazy part was on the same day, I got 2 offers. I got one from the Rockets and I got one from the Lakers to do their television. I'm looking like, you want the country boy with the country slang from Alabama to do your television? And that kind of fell into my lap. And I've been loving television ever since and, having fun with it.
It's funny. I think both of our wives love that country talk a lot, right?
Exactly.
But people do. I mean, just in general, you got a talking head, but then you got somebody who's knowledgeable and who's talking real. That makes a difference. But, let's talk about first focus. You get the ball last second. You're about to take those shots. Is there anything going through your mind or does it become automatic?
It becomes automatic. I kind of compare it to when you wake up in the morning and you go to the bathroom to either use it, brush your teeth, whatever it may do. You get out of bed, you don't say left, right when you're taking your steps. You just do it, right?
Right.
I know that's a Nike logo, but it's actually what you do. You just do it. And because you spent countless hours in the gym taking shots. You know, you seen the commercials. You probably did it when you was growing up in the backyard. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've all done that. Whoever picked up the sport. So that was one of the things that I've always done, and I think it goes back to my junior year in high school. My junior year in high school, I'm like #1 player in the state of Alabama, playing in the Christmas tournament. I get fouled. We're down 2. I go to the line. I miss the first one. So now I got to miss the second one to try to get the rebound, put it back. I missed the second. We lose. And I remember walking into the locker room. You know, for me, I'm like, okay, it's just another game. But it was our Christmas tournament. And you're supposed to win your Christmas tournament. And I'm looking at everybody in that room crying but me. And I'm like, I said, I felt like an asshole, excuse my language, but I'm like, that's when it hit me like, man, I can't let my teammates down.
Yeah.
I got to figure out whatever it is I can do, if it's rebounds and scoring, blocking, whatever it is when it comes to the game of basketball, to try to be successful so you don't see the tears in your teammates' eyes, because those are your brothers.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you have a real life brother, you never want to see them hurt. And so that hurt them. And so in the inside, it hurt me. And so from that moment on, I started to focus on trying to stay calm in situations, not think about the situation, because playing basketball is second nature to most of us because we've done it for so long.
Right.
So that's how I stay calm in those situations, because I play it in my mind. Just do it. Don't think about it, because trust the process. Trust all the hours you've done.
Right.
And if you've done it correctly in practice, it's going to transfer to a game.
I think you clearly win the award for the greatest player to never let your teammates down. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Yeah.
But you're talking about discipline, about routine,
Yeah.
about decades, multiple decades of discipline, doing the same thing, the routine, so that when you need it under pressure. Have you followed that now, kind of, I know it is, but in your life, post the routines of the NBA now in your life?
Well, I kind of passed it along to, my youngest son, Christian, who's at UCLA. And one of the things that we will always go over is like game speed. And so he's one of these guys, he going, I put up 100 shots. I'm like, with a game speed? He like, doesn't count if it ain't game speed. I said, because you got to understand, so many factors come into shooting the ball in a game. Yeah, you might have a spot up shooter every now and then, but 90% of the time, it's going to be something with some adversity coming at you, or you're going to be fatigued, or, whatever it may be. And that's what I always tell him. I say, I don't care how many shots you get up. Is it game speed? I say, game speed is the most important thing. I'm sure in your case, you have mock trials when you're talking to whoever people. I don't know if you do. I just see it on TV, so I'm assuming. Yeah. But you see that, and so even when Candace laughs at me, my wife, she laughs at me because sometimes I'm talking to myself in a mirror, and I'm going over what I want to talk about on the show, and things like that, just so I can have it in my mind. Because now, if I don't talk about it, and it's a good point, I'll forget about it, because you got so many things you're thinking about. And if I say it over and over and over, I'll say, okay, now it's in the memory bank. So, and it's just, it's, even though I'm not taking shots anymore, I'm taking shots at the mind. Yeah. I'm trying to make the mind say, okay, now you're going to spew this out during the show, and you have that. So I think everything that I've practiced as an athlete kind of has crossed over into me as just being who I am and being a parent. And I just try to convey that to my kids. Like, if you want to be successful in anything in life, you got to keep working hard at it. And if you fail, don't worry about it. A lot of people look at the word failure as bad. And it's a big debate in the NBA. If you don't win a championship, are you a failure? And a lot of guys says, no. I'm like, yes, you are. Because your goal was to win a championship. Did you get it? No, you failed. But failure also allows you to learn from your mistakes. If you don't fail, and all of a sudden you fail, and you don't like, okay, what do I do? And so it kind of puts you in a bad spot. So that's why I tell, play as hard as you can, do what you can. If you fail, go back, sit down, analyze what you did, play it back in your mindset, and pick out what you did wrong, and then correct it. And so it ain't nothing wrong with failure. We all fail, and we all learn from those failures.
Yeah. We have, Gina and I talk about, my wife Gina, we talk about the difference in letting failure derail you versus letting it help you, is whether you make failure an identity or it becomes an event right? So I failed, therefore I'm a failure. Or I failed, okay, that's an event. Now it can hurt like hell, right?
Yeah.
If it means something to you, it hurts like a son of
Yeah.
a bitch.
Yes, it does.
But then what do I do with that? And you realize that the only growth is in that failure and then doing it again,
Mhm.
doing it again. And I always talk about, failing once, it happens, right? But what you do to get back in the ring, get back on the court, get back in whatever,
Mhm.
that means everything, right?
Yeah.
And how you respond. So I don't know this. Have you ever had like serious physical injuries in your career?
I've only had 2 injuries that really kept me out over multiple weeks, and the first injury I ever got was I don't remember who we were playing, but I remember one of my teammates who passed away, Jerome Kersey. I was looking to get a rebound. All of a sudden, I felt someone hit my leg on the left side, and I strained my MCL.
Mhm.
And so this happened as a Laker, so I was out for a while. But that was okay. But the scariest one was, I hardly ever get sick, and it's weird now because I got this really bad sinus infection. And my wife's like, "You never get sick. It must
Yeah.
be something. You had the COVID test, you got the RH test, and all these kind of things." But I'm clear. And so, leading that, back in '98, everybody on the team got sick but me. And it's like, "You didn't get sick?" I'm like, "No, I didn't get sick." And so we were leading into a Sunday afternoon game, and the day before I kept having these pains in my chest. And so that day, we get to the locker room, I go tell Gary Vitti, who's our trainer. I said, "Gary, you feel like I'm having extra beats?" And so he goes and he, of course, he takes the stethoscope and listens to my heart. And he says, "Hold on," goes get the doctor. Doctor comes in like, "Oh, we got to go." I'm like, "Go where?" "We got to go to the hospital. We got to go to the hospital now."
No kidding.
And so, long story short, I was having like over 365 extra beats a day. And if I would have played, I would have probably died. I would have went into arrhythmia and died. So I had to be in the hospital for like 3 days. They was trying to figure out how to calm that down. And the great thing that came out of that was I got to meet Will Chamberlain.
Oh, no kidding. How do you?
We had the same heart doctor, so I got to meet him right before he passed. So yeah, and that was the scariest thing because you don't know. You hear about Hank Gathers who passed away on the court. You hear about so many other guys who've had heart issues that derailed their career. And so at that point, I'm like, "Oh crap, I am just about to get a new contract. What am I doing?" I'm like, I remember sitting there and all of a sudden I heard beep, and I said, "I just died." But one of the leads that came off, and that's when I started, just sitting down and thinking about how thankful I am for this position I've been in, and hopefully that this will be something that I can come back from. And very fortunate for myself, I came back from it, and I won 5 more championships after that.
I'd say that's a comeback.
So that's a comeback, yeah. And I think this is, I remember my first game back. I never had a panic attack. And I think I had a panic attack. I don't know if it was. I'm playing, all of a sudden my heart starts racing. And I remember I was like, "Oh crap." And things started speeding up around me. And something said, "Rob, just go sit down." I remember Derek Fisher was looking at me and he saw me like kind of like out of whack. And he goes, runs, get Gary B, like, "Something's wrong with Rob." And I said, "No, he's just I'm just taking a deep breath and just then trying to bring it all back and be thankful for that moment, man." And it was, I think, that's the only 2 injuries I ever had, but that one was the scariest one because you can come back from a knee injury, but if that heart says we're done,
no kidding,
you're done.
So I don't know that ever. I told you a little bit about this, but when I first saw you play, I was in law school at LSU.
Uh-huh.
Shaq was there, and you and Shaq duking it out, right? Alabama, LSU. And then, obviously I followed your career all through Houston and San Antonio and the Lakers, of course. And from an outside, fan, you see different personalities, and maybe we put it on people that it's true or it's not true. But I always saw you as Mr. Reliable, the calm, steady force, the guy that, okay, what do we do? Give it to Robert, right? And it's so interesting that you, I think, even though you're so active, you were such a team player, and it's like you were there wherever anybody needed it. Did you feel like you were a calming presence on the court, or were you one of the the people that needed calming.
I always felt like I was a calming presence. Because you always hear about leaders. You hear about the guys on the bench taking over, taking the pad, and drawing up plays. And you always hear about the guys in the locker room giving speeches. From my experience, those leaders, that's not the true leaders to me. A true leader who can pull Shaq to the side, yo man, you got to do better. You talk to him one-on-one, and I always felt like that was more respected. And then yo Cole, we need to do this. Guys need you to pass the ball a little more. Hey Cole, you need to be more accepting of guys messing up. Everybody's not as good as you. You got to understand that. And you go over to Tim like, yo, I remember we had this one episode.
Duncan.
Tim Duncan had this one episode in practice where Tim elbows me, and I just said, excuse my language. I said, you ain't shit. This is why fucking Carlos Booz is busting your ass. And he was like, it was because the Utah Jazz was for some reason always beating us. And so we would get ready to play them, and Pop was like, yeah, Rob, get in his ass, bro. Yeah. And I'm like, and the next game, Pop comes like, I'm going to start you. Get in his ear and tell him he ain't shit. So I'm out on the court. Oh, here we go. Booz about to bust your ass, right? Tim has the best game he had. We finally win in Utah. We beat the Jazz. I'm like, and and there's just little things like that as a person, as a player, that you have to understand who you're with. You have to understand the psyche of each and every person on the team, because everybody ain't the same.
Yeah.
Every attitude is different. Like for me, if you want to know something about me, you have to come to me and talk to me. Once you yell at me, you got one time to yell at me. Second time, then we got a problem, because now you thinking I'm dumb. Well, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm gonna understand you better if you come to me and say, yo, Rob, you're not getting back on defense. Yo, Rob, you got to take that shot. Yo, Rob, those are the little things you have to know who your audience is.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing, man. And people don't understand, players all have egos. Players all come from different backgrounds.
Yep.
So you got to find that connection. That's when I have to say the coaches that I've had, Rudy, Phil, Pop, they all know how to connect. And that's the biggest thing. If you see so many guys, you take whatever team it might be, you see all this talent. Let's go back to 99. We have 4 or 5 All-Stars on the team. We don't go to the NBA Finals. It's because there was a disconnect with Dale Harris and all those guys we had on our team. Nick had an attitude. Eddie Jones had an attitude. Shaq had an attitude. Cole. And you got to bring that together. And you needed someone like Phil. And it also helps when you coach the best player ever in the world and you win 6 titles with him. You're going to follow that guy because you can take it to the promised land. So I think that's the one thing from my position is like, everybody never talks about me as being a leader. But I don't care about that because I knew how to get the best out of my players, because I'm going to keep you calm and I'm going to fire you up when I need to.
See, what we were talking about at dinner the other night, and when you said all the players are different, right? There's probably not a player that ever made it to the NBA that didn't have God-given talent, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Physical attributes that allow them. They didn't work their ass off.
Yeah.
They didn't endure every kind of hardship and difficulty and got through it. But yet, different players perform better or worse at different times. And you were talking about what's up here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a universal thing that I think everybody can identify with. But I'd love to hear what you were talking about the other night too.
Yeah, as far as the mental aspect of it is, it's one of those things where so many kids come in thinking they're going to be the greatest. So many kids come in and think because of their parents tell them, oh, you're gonna be the best ever. And if you're not, what happens then? Are you able to accept being second best, the third best, or the fifth best, or just taking your back seat and saying, okay, for this team to be successful, I need to do A, B, C, and D. And for me, I've always felt like I can be that chameleon. If you need me to score 40. Come to me, I can. If you need me to not shoot the ball at all and play better defense, I can.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, if we get that dub, that's all I care about. So many people, their goal is to make the most money, be considered one of the greatest, then make the Hall of Fame. It's hard to say, if you think about it, the day you get drafted, you very rarely meet a kid like, oh, I'm in the NBA, I want to win a championship. They always say, I want to be the best I can be. And they think that just because I'm the best I can be, that's going to make me win a championship. That ain't always the case.
Yep.
Because you have to have guys who know how to sacrifice. And if you know how guys that sacrifice, your team ain't going to, if you let's take the current NBA champion, OKC. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, MVP, takes a lot of shots, takes a lot of bad shots because that's what most stars of the team do. But one thing you notice the other guys, they don't get upset. They sit back and they say, okay, this is who he is. This is what we're going to do to be successful. This is how we're going to help him out. You go back a couple of years, you watch the Golden State Warriors before Klay Thompson left. And Poole comes down and takes a bad shot. You see the body language. That's like cancer to a team.
Yep.
Because now I just seen you do that. Now he takes another bad shot. I'm going to do that. And there's the dysfunction in the team. And that's the one thing you have to understand, because mentally, the game's not always going to go your way. Mentally, you're not always going to be the best player on your team. Of course, you might be the best player on your high school team. You might be the best player on your college team. But now you're going to come to the NBA where you got guys you never even heard of coming out of a foreign country, guys who are grown men who've been there for 12 years that have the experience. They know exactly how to manipulate players. I can read exactly what you're going to do and counter that. So those little things like that. Now, mentally, are you able to accept, okay, how do I adapt my game to move on and be successful and have a long career? You see so many guys, you just take Allen Iverson, had a great career. But once he stopped being AI, the go-to guy, he kind of went from Denver, he went to Memphis. He kept bouncing, and great players shouldn't bounce. Even your boy Shaq. Once he started being Diesel, he went to Phoenix, he went to Cleveland, he went to Boston, he went to some other. That's what's like, you lose your identity. But you get guys like, myself, even though I was on 14s, you kind of, this is what he do because he's a plug into any situation type of player. And I think once you get that mental where you can say, okay, I'm just going to read the room and figure out how to make the team better. I always say I don't make the product, but I damn sure make it better. And that's how I always lived my life in NBA. I had to read the room and make the product better for us to be successful.
Where do you feel like you got that? Was that from your parents? Was that from an experience? From that, just you?
I'll be honest with you, it came from when I went to Alabama.
Really?
I think about it. To me, I was the best player on the Alabama team, and I was the third leading scorer. And I went through this period where you're going to get a kick out of this, where I got kicked off the team because in my head, I'm the best player on the team. I'm not getting enough shots. We're not even, it's like we're winning, but I'm complaining about getting shots.
Well, I know it was Sprewell, right?
It was Sprewell.
But who was the number 2?
James Robinson.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, Hollywood Robinson, who played with Portland for a while. Yeah.
Right.
And so for me, that's when I learned it. And then I could see the importance of me because I got kicked off the team and they brought me back right before the SEC tournament. We playing in Vanderbilt. And that first game, we're getting waxed. We already won the SEC championship 2 years in a row. This is going to be the third. And we getting waxed, and all the coaches, you got to put Rob in. And Wimp stayed fast. Like, no, I'm not putting him in. I got to show him that we can win without him. And, of course, they came back and won that game. But next game, we blew everybody out once I came in the game. And that's just one of the things that showed me that, even though you're winning, you can't be selfish. And I think that kind of really spilled over into Christian, which I hate that it did because he sat back a lot playing at Harvard Westlake and then take shots. They won 2 state championships, but I'm like, yo, I love that, but you got to, make sure you get yours. And for me, that's when I learned that, it ain't about you. It's about us. It's about what we do as a team if we win. Now, if you have the advantage, we're going to use you. If you don't have the advantage, use someone else. It was so many games where James Robinson had the advantage, where Sprewell had the advantage. And, go to work. And I think from that situation, being kicked off the team as a junior year, and it was an eye-opener. But I didn't get kicked off the team. You want to know why I got kicked off the team?
Yeah, I do want to know. We all want to know. Come on.
So this is a funny story. So I'm the type of person, if you elbow me in the game, I'm going to look at you. If you say something like, oh, my bad, dog, I'm going to let it slide. But if you say something out of pocket, then I got to get you back. We playing Vanderbilt, and I don't remember the guy's name, a little guard. He elbowed me, man, one of those ones that take you down to your knee. And he looked at back and said, F you. I said, okay. And so the whole game, I could not get him back, right? So at the end of the game, our benches have to cross. You know how you dap everybody up? So I'm on the right side. So I got the ball in my hand. And as we cross, and I take the ball and shove it in his stomach as hard as I can. You take this, you little bitch. And we all squared up about the fight. And they cleared us all and rushed everybody to the locker room. And then the Vanderbilt coach comes in our locker room. And I was like, you about to get your ass whooped. You don't get up out of here, man. And, he's like, your player is dirty, da-da-da-da. I'm like, I'm going to have to say what I said. Fuck you. Get out of the locker room. And then Wimp comes in and he says.
That's Wimp Sanderson.
Yeah, Wimp Sanderson comes in. He was like, you don't come in my locker room. I don't come in your da-da-da-da. And so he calls me into the office that next day. And he says, did you do that? I said, first of all, let me say something. You should never let someone disrespect me in front of our teammate. I could have been wrong, which I was, but you never do that. You have my back until that situation goes out, and then you handle it. You handled it the wrong way. He said, I handled it the wrong way. It's my team. I'm like, and so he said, your attitude? I said, well, it's your team. You know what? It's going to be my team in a minute.
Oh.
And he says, no, it won't, because you're off the fucking team.
Yeah, there you go.
So he kicked me off the team. I said, you think I fucking care? At this time, I was being, I had.
So you're what, 19, 18?
No, I was 21 at the time.
Oh.
Yeah, I was 21. And I was a junior, and I because at my sophomore year, I had been ranked one of the top 10 small forwards in the country. So I'm a junior year, I'm smoking high. I'm thinking, okay, well, fuck this. I'm going to the NBA next season. Right. And so I'm literally like, you don't bring me back? Hey, it ain't like I care. I'm going to the league anyway. Yeah. So I was on, and I remember I had a couple of teams, the Knicks was one, saying they were interested in me. And so I was like, okay, I'm about to leave. But then talking to my mother and talking to one of my good friends, she was like, man, come back for your senior year so we can win this SEC 4 years in a row. Mm-hmm. It's never been done. And, of course, I come back. We don't win it. We lose in the championship to Kentucky. Right. But, yeah, I'm glad I did because then I became a lottery pick and actually went to a great team, the Houston Rockets, that put me in position to be successful. And so it just worked out.
And you played with Clyde Drexler and Elijah Wan.
Yeah. I know that was a long story to get to how we but it's that's how life is. Sometimes it's a long path to get to where you want. Even that's what I tell kids now. It's like y'all looking for the shortcut.
Yep.
There's no shortcuts in life. You got to. Sometimes the road might lead you a roundabout way to get where you want to be, but at the end, when you get to the end of that journey, you're gonna realize I learned a lot.
Yep.
I can be so successful, and then when I have kids, I can tell them about my path, so they can miss all the pitfalls that I've occurred and be better in their life.
I see so many players where their parents were professional athletes, and that you can just tell. It's like you learned how to behave, but you learned the mental and the physical aspects of it. That's amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Did it hurt you to heart to know that I learned my discipline from going to Alabama?
Hey, look, I know Alabama needs a lot of discipline. So. Having had this career, having had the experiences you had, the one thing I keep coming back to, I always hear about every time we're together, your mother. And you were talking about your mom. Yeah. She comes out here every so often. You go back there. Yeah. You are the role model to your kids, you and your wife. What do you think your mom and having a strong presence like that gave you? Yeah. And you can't just say everything. I know it's everything, but.
Well, it's, and my mom always had that wild card. Don't make me call you father. My dad, former military, 16 years in the Army. And so my mom always put that card because, back in the day, if you didn't do something right, you might get the spanking of your life. That's right. And that's the discipline. Pain is the greatest remembrance. People don't think about it like that. When that pain hits you, you're gonna remember.
Yeah.
And my mom was, hard working, woman. Teacher, got a master's, and then we eventually, moved into our own house. And she always put it on me to be an adult. She always said, I'm not going to be around forever. All parents always say that. And so she would leave me at home. I had to cook, I had to clean, I had to do all these things. And I think it puts you in that right path, that discipline path. When you discipline enough to clean up your room, clean up the house, cook for yourself and do all these things, it kind of carries over in school, you know. And again, I think if my mom wasn't a teacher, I wonder if I'd been the same person, because teachers know teachers. So I could mess up in class. It's like, oh, I'm gonna tell your mama, damn it.
Yeah, right.
yeah. So, you know, and then that discipline. And plus, I know I had a, you know, one of your people who work for you, you know, he's from Andalusia. We had the same coach, you know, one of the great discipline.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's what y'all were talking about.
Yeah, Richard Robertson, you know, he was a disciplinary. You know, I remember one day, that was my senior year. You know, I don't miss school, like we talked about earlier, how I never get sick. I'm like, senior year, I'm saying, I'm take a day off.
All right, we all
of a sudden, I'll go to the door, I'm like, boy, why you in school? I'm like, I'm taking a day off. Get your ass to get in the car and get to school right now. He would, even though I was a senior, he would not let me slack.
That's right.
And that's one of the things that, you know, and he was like, I know your dad in here, but I got to be your dad. You know, your mom, when your mom knew you was at home slacking, she wouldn't like that either. And, you know, but my mom she was always on me about grades. She, you know, she would come to the game. I don't even think she even understood basketball. She would just come to support her child, you know, and that's who she was. She was always having my back, always encouraging me. But the one thing she would always say, you know, respect everybody, you know, because if you treat everybody the right way, they're going to love you more than they would if you treat them the wrong way.
Yep.
And so she was just always that person to believe in, you know, doing the right thing. You know, it's like Spike Lee, do the right thing. That's just how she was.
What do you think?
How she is, I should say.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'm every time you talk about her, I hear that comes out so clear, you know. So you have accomplished all these things all the way up till now. But let's go now at the end of it. People are like, hey, how would you describe yourself? Like, if people talk about Robert Horry in years from now, what would you hope that they talk about?
So we had a test, and it's not really a test. Phil Jackson used to give out these tests, and it was always about the triangle. And so he says, how would you describe yourself? And I said, he had fun. You know, that's what I said. It was three, you're supposed to be 3 lines. I just put a big he, and then had, and fun. It's like first line was supposed to be a sentence, second line was supposed to be a third line. I said, no, he had fun. And so for me, I enjoy life. You know, you got to go out with a great attitude. And trust me, when my daughter passed, I went through a period where I was not myself. You know, you had that tragedy, and you're trying to figure out why me, and, you know, is there anything I could have did to make a difference? And so I went through a bad spell. So I'm not perfect by far. And so you when you come through that storm, it gives you an appreciation for life even more. You know, I just wanted to have fun, enjoy life, and, you know, and be the best person I can be. And I think for me, when I want people to describe me, I think I want them just to say he was a guy who had your back. He was a guy that you could count on. He was a guy that put you before himself. And to me, that's just how it is. You know, I just like to put people before me. I like this is gonna sound weird, but I don't like getting gifts. This is sound weird, because I think people could, instead of, you know, for a person who's been successful in life as me, who has money to buy pretty much whatever you want, I would rather you just give me a card and then go out and buy, you know, cigars, you know, watch or liquor or whatever it would be. You know, the normal things we get for birthdays, Christmas, Father's Day. I'm like, I just rather have that side, because I feel like you could take your money and do something better with that than buy me a gift. Because 9 times out of 10, there's like, you know, I could probably get myself that gift. Yeah. You know, I know it's the thought that counts, what people say, but my thought is you could do something better, especially if you got kids. No, don't buy me that. Take that and put it in a fund for your kids, so that can grow and mature. So when they get out of school or get into school, that can either help them with a college fund or buy a car. And that's just how I am, you know. And Candace gets mad at me because, you know, there's sometimes she's like, well, like for instance, we just had Father's Day. What do you want? I'm like, I don't want anything. So she surprised me and takes me to get some clothing. I'm like, what's gonna fit me? It's gonna fit. We bought it, take it home. Of course, it doesn't fit. We take it back. I'm like, I can't just walk in any store, babe. But it's just one of the, I don't, and it's just,
you're not even big and tall. You're like big and really tall.
yeah. So it's just weird, man. People always say, how do you want people to describe you? How do you want people? He was human. He was just a human being who just had a love for life, and he respected everybody he came across.
I think one of the many reasons we get along, about a million of them, but one of them is I think you legitimately, and I do too, enjoy helping other people.
Yeah.
Right? You get a lot of genuine pleasure out of giving to other people. Yeah. And I wonder if that's like a Southern raised thing or what.
Yeah.
But people are like, I'm the same way. Father's Day, I don't want nothing. Yeah. Christmas, not right. All I want is us to go to dinner, spend some time together. We're good, right?
Just don't buy me no damn socks or a tie. And so my son Christian, he buys me tank top. Like, dude, I got too many tank tops. I don't need any more tank tops.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I want to also say that I think a lot of times when you sit back and you look at the people who want to give you gifts, you appreciate it though. Yeah. Don't think I don't appreciate it. I really do, because a lot of gifts that they give you mean they love you, because they took the time out. It's not like they just said, okay, I'm gonna buy this and bring it, some casual thing. Like I have so many gifts, that you really like, damn, they took their time and picked this out for me. They appreciate me. And that makes you feel really good too. But I also back my mind being the person the selfless person, like, you can use that for something. And then like if you give me let's say you give me a gift of, a spa. I'm using the gift with you. Let's go to the spa. Yeah. Exactly. So you do it together. It's just so many things like that you're appreciative of. And for me, I appreciate everything, because I know, and I think when you look back, I think about how tragedies make you appreciate things. My best friend in high school told me he was going to kill himself. I said, stop bullshitting. He walks out in the parking lot of school and kills himself. And then one of my friends, I used to go to Bible study together. I was off on a freaking recruiting trip, and we were in ROTC together. While I'm off, we used to do stuff together, and he just has a heart attack on the field. And it's like, two of my best friends in high school passed away, and people I was close with, was always with them that day. And it's just, these tragedies just make you stronger mentally and physically as a person. And of course, when you get to your daughter, that's like the ultimate, loss. And I'm like, okay, what do I do? And for me, you appreciate everything in life, man, because you got to think about how crazy this world is, and it's to have the opportunity to hang out with great people and let them appreciate you and you appreciate them back is always a wonderful thing.
That's beautiful. Well, when you were in high school, they called you the great Robert Horry. When you were in college, you were the great Robert Horry. When you were in the NBA, the great Robert Horry. But this is the great Robert Horry. Yeah. So thank you very much for being here.
Man, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it, because sometimes, to have the ability to just sit down and just talk, not talk about basketball, just talk about your journey and talk about everything, is always a pleasure, because it's almost like, it's like therapy somewhat. Yep. It's almost like just sitting back with one of your boys, shooting shit, so to say. And for me, it's always great to just be around great people and just tap into them, because you can always learn from everybody in your life. I tell my son this all the time. It's just, you can learn from your 4-year-old. You can learn from a 20-year-old, because why? Because you don't know everything.
That's right.
And there's gonna be things that they can tell you and teach you even though you learn. I go back to, my daughter passed, and my middle son Cameron kept telling me to watch this movie. I think it's called Beautiful. I can't remember. It was a Will Smith movie. And it was the one, and I'm like, I finally watched it. It was a Will Smith. I know everybody said I looked like Will Smith. And so it was a Will Smith movie where his daughter dies. Yeah. And he was just angry. And I'm like, he was like, Dad, that was you. And I was just angry after my daughter passed. And it's amazing. I learned that from my kid, who was only 10 years old, that kids know who you are. They've been around. They watch you. And so after that moment, so many things changed. It's a funny story, because at the time I put on, like, I was drinking a lot. I was just eating and smoking cigars all the time.
Right.
And so after I watched this, I told myself I had to change him. And the first thing I do is say, okay, exercise lets you get out all those demons. And so there's a park by my house in Katy. I used to, I started jogging it. And so it's this old man who lived in my neighborhood. I said, old man, he had to be probably like in his 60s or 70s. You got to think at the time, I'm 40? So maybe he had 40. And so I'm out there jogging. And I'm like, about to pass out.
Right.
And hey, Robert, how you doing? And the reason I tell you the story is because he had an LSU hat on.
Oh, come on,
he just like, hey, Robert, how you doing? I'm like, oh, hell no. So I tried to keep up with him, but he just left me, man. And so it's little things like that, man, when we talk about learning. I know that's I just had to tell you that funny story because it was a long way to get to it. Is that LSU has always been inspired to be better.
We're here all the time, baby. That was great. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.
Man, my pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time, too. Everybody, thanks for watching. If you want to check out more about Robert, social media is Robert Horry 7X. I wonder what the 7X is for. Come on, baby. So I appreciate it. See y'all soon. Come on now.
Roll Tide.
No. Oh. Perfect.